Hello, welcome to another episode of the Great Work Launchpad. My name is Chris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. It is February 11th, 2026, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be talking about more on shadow work, more on fear of love, more on the fear of sacrifice. So this is the second part of the fear of sacrifice. Fear of Sacrifice, Great Work Launchpad, Episode 41, Shadow Work 39, Fear of Love 24. Where's my thing? Oh, yeah. So we're talking about the Great Work, getting launched into the Great Work, and that's all about doing the work and getting activated, as we have here. Where is this? Right? Launching up, spaceship, rocket, going up. The Great Work is about taking in the truth, living through that force, that propensity of love, agape, true care, and that leads you to work to create true freedom. And that's the Great Work. So we're getting launched into that work. And to do that, you need to know how to spread information that is quality information, valuable information, moral truth most importantly. And you can go learn it on your own, or you can take a class like one is offered by Mark Passio here on how to become the true media. So you can check that out to enroll next year if you so desire. If not, go learn it on your own. That's what counts. And in a few weeks, there is the 5th iteration of the funnel conference, Freedom Under Natural Law.com, titled Ignite Hearts and Minds. So go check that out. Tune in, see what you can learn from the presenters. And Brandon Spencer will be one of the presenters. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, good evening. How's it going?
All right. Yeah. So let's get into, do a little recap. Last week, talked about how much time, what are you doing with your time, your effort? What are you giving of yourself, parts of your life to get involved in the cause of freedom? Not just cheerleading it, watching from a distance, being on the sidelines. How much do you actually care to get involved? To know the difference between right and wrong and work towards propagating that knowledge so that people can align with the positive side as opposed to the negative side. If you're not doing the work to those peripheral, either that moral truth, teaching that moral truth, or peripherals to get people to live by that moral truth, then you're not really a help to the cause of freedom. And there are a lot of hard truths that people can talk about. We talked about that. We talked about mentioning Ma'at, symbolism related to Ma'at, people living in a lie, believing that you're a good person, more good than you are, or if you don't even care that you're good at all, then you're not even going to try. You're not going to live in the illusion, but you're not even going to care to even be good at all. Two bad positions to be in, but one's worse than the other. And then we ended talking about why are you unbegun in the Great Work, and it comes down to deadened care, just not caring enough. That care, that agape, like this is Fear or Love 24. So we've talked about it a lot over the past few weeks and months. I've gone into it a lot. But that force, that propensity with you that is a contributor to the overall direction of syntropy, of true order, constructing things, building things in a positive sense in the universe, that positive evolutionary pathway. Well, that force within you is not activated enough to the point where you are doing things to promote that as an actuality, for that to be realized in the world. So you could be maybe, believing that you're good, or doing or supporting evil, veiled in the appearance of good. So this is all things you have to face about the world and about yourself, being honest with yourself in order to overcome these negative aspects that you're still within these negative modalities that represent you still serving that force of fear, force of involution, force of entropy and chaos. So you have to become aware of it before you can realize that you're in it in order to change course. So all the decisions we make in our life, well, that's the course we're on. And these are all decisions that we can change. You can't change what happened in the past, but you can change where you're going from here. And that's the importance of truth overall, and the goal of aligning with moral truth so that you get on that right path. So people don't get involved because some of them don't even know what this is all, what we're even talking about, what this purpose is, what this common inherent purpose that we all have in existence, our inherent birthright, our rights that have been denied from us and violated. That's what the great work is. We all have that in common because it's all our birthright. Our natural rights are our birthright, and they're being violated. In order to get them back, you have to engage in this work, in this effort to try to restore that original default state prior to anyone violating anyone. There are no violations. So then what you have is that state of true freedom. And it's only because of the behavior of others creating these violations that true freedom is destroyed, is diminished. And we live in degrees of freedom. As I mentioned last week, something I referred to as the dualistic conceptual framework. Pretty much everything can be looked at in terms of more or less of whatever quality. And there's a positive side and a negative side. And so you can have qualities of good, but not actually be truly good in terms of not being immoral and engaging in this work to end immorality, to end evil, to end our enslavement. So even when people know about all this, they still don't engage in this work. They're still not activating themselves. They haven't got involved, even though they know the stuff and what's really happening. It's because of this deadened care. They are still not awakened. If I can find an image for that. That's not the right one. Anyways. Is it over here? Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, people are not awakened. They haven't, like that tarot judgment card, they haven't heard the clarion call, or maybe they have heard the call, as many of us are engaging. We're putting our voices out, right? This is the trumpet is a sound. It's a vibrational sound, and when we are speaking, we are engaging in a vibrational sound. So we're not literally playing a trumpet and whatever it is, but we're making the call to get people to wake up and rise from their deadened states. And I've joked before that a lot of people might have like an eye partially open or their eyes open, but they haven't raised their body, let alone gotten up off their 2 feet or even stepped out of the coffin. So there's different levels to all of this, but the aspect that I'm talking about related to, like, in summarizing the end of the last week's episode, is that people still have deadened care. Even if you're aware of this, you know what's going on, you're still not you still haven't awakened that care to the level that is necessary for you to step out of the coffin and engage in the work necessary to fight for true freedom, the restoration of true freedom, which is, that's fighting for yourself, fighting for everyone. We're all in this together in a true sense, not in a COVID-1984 sense, but we're all in this together in the sense of it's not going to happen just you selfishly alone trying to get just freedom for you. that isn't actually what true freedom is. True freedom is represented by the law of freedom, and that's an aggregate functionality, a summation of all of the behaviors together, producing the resulting quality of the condition of the world we all live in. It's a co-created human world. One person does not create the human world. We all have our part in the construction or the allowance of what others are constructing. We're allowing it to happen. And this is the light world that we want to create, or the dark world that we want to create or allow to be created. And we're allowing a dark world to continue to be manifested around us. I'll pass it to you, Brandon, before we continue, if you want to add anything to that.
Yes, just real quick. I think people should go study what centropy is, so they can get a better understanding of that unified force. That most things are centered to is coming together. To harmonize, to unify. That way, there can be that cohesive bond. Going on, because that's all we are. Have talking about is you have a bunch of small parts. You have a bunch of individuals, but there's a lot of chaos. We're in this chaotic state, and in order for us to, get to that, you know, centropic force, then we have to learn, and come to understand what true morality is, so we can unify our thoughts, our ability to care, and our actions, and align them, so then therefore we can unify with others. And once, we unify as a species, then we can start to unify with, bigger and greater things in existence, whatever that may be. But, we can't get to that, unified centropic force, if we are, still stuck in this, chaotic, fearful, state that's, you know, breaking people up and, um, you know, creating more distance between people. So yeah, you can go and study what centropy is, like in actual real science, and get a better, idea. Because that's all, how we are trying to do is just give people the keys so they can unify with themselves and unify, with the truth. Then they can, start to unify, hell, unify with other people, and then start to put out this message, hell, this truth, So it's like Chris said, once you've heard the call, then, you'll use those vibrational tones to use your word and, spread this message.
Yeah, and those, unifying with our species and then more things. Who knows? Maybe we'd get invited to the Galactic Federation and things like that. I'm
Yeah.
joking, but hey, maybe that shit's real. Who knows? But the Cosmic Brotherhood. If it's there, if that's a thing, they don't want infantile psychopaths to take care of or anything like that. So we got to grow up and take care of our own house, and that starts internally with your own house, and then, well, our house, the planet, we're all on, as Buckminster Fuller calls it, a space ball or space rock, Earth or something like that. We're hurling through space on one rock, and like this is our home. That's our house. So we gotta get that in order. Um, yeah. So that didn't care. People are not activated and they're not getting involved, despite knowing. If you know all this, you don't really need to listen to it. If you know it, you can go teach it. If you're interested in the material, maybe you've already heard it before from Passio, and maybe you can learn some stuff. Like last week, we related some other stuff that he didn't originally talk about. So like one thing that comes to mind is like Ma'at. So you can hear things, and people can bring new information related to it and correlate and associate, correspond, and you can see how it connects more to other things. And if not, and you already know it, well, yeah, then go teach it. No one has to listen to this or anything else, but you should be aware of it from someone, if not me or Passio, hopefully someone else. But you gotta come across this important information to understand your part in the grand scheme of things, in the overall aggregate law of freedom, causal calculation of how we get the world we get. And you do have a part to play, even if it's like a drop in a lake. You're still, each drop constitutes what that lake forms, and without each drop, well, then do you have a lake if there's no more drops? No, you don't have any more lake. So the drops in the lake make the lake what it is. Well, the human world is what it is because each individual is in it, either creating that downward direction or allowing that downward direction to happen. So it's up to us to try to right the course, and go back in the upward direction, the positive direction. And maybe you won't ever do it. Maybe some people who listen to this or who've listened to Passio, maybe they'll never do it. And maybe that's because they're just a loser. As we've talked about before, people who aren't getting involved, you're just choosing to be a loser. You're not trying to be a winner in fighting for your own freedom and ending your own enslavement. You're just accepting to be a slave, so that makes you a loser because you're not even trying to end that condition of your own enslavement. And people are always coming up with excuses. We talked about in the excuses section like a few months ago. So you're playing to lose. Whatever you're doing, and certainly it's not doing the work of teaching morality or the peripherals to get people to understand morality, or like the shadow work and things about the world to understand that that the way things are shouldn't be that way and there's a way out of it. All these various things. You're playing to lose because you're not doing that work. So all the things you are doing won't actually create or restore true freedom. So the people who think they're helping, and we've talked about this before, you can believe that you're actually helping, but how much are you actually helping? If you take an objective appraisal of what you're doing or not doing, and if you understand that true freedom, your rights not being violated as a continual, perpetual condition, and yes, there can be individual violations, and then you can apply consequences to them, but that's not what we have now. Right now, what we have is a persistent condition of enslavement, mostly through the threat of greater violence by the condition of duress and coercion. That's the violation of our free will in order to allow things to be done. Otherwise, they are going to do more severe violations of our rights if we don't comply. And if we all said no and we all stood together, we could combat them and they wouldn't. Sure, some of us might get hurt or die, but then we could end it. And people have tried this in the past with revolutions, but the revolution is just to revolve, and that's why it revolves. The revolutions just end up setting up the same thing. Maybe it's in a diminished form of severity, a diminished negative embodiment of it, but you always end up with authority coming back, and it's just different people at the wheel. And that's what a lot of the people want to change society right now. They just want to change who's at the steering wheel, because that's what government means. From govern, gubernare, and you have in programming, in infrastructure for a lot of what's in the world now in cloud computing, you have Kubernetes. This comes from Kubernetes is steering as well, and govern is to control, to steer, to pilot. And that's what people want, is just a new pilot at the helm, at that steering wheel of that ship of control. And they want to be the ones who are going to tell people what to do and what not to do. And they want this because they are completely oblivious to objective morality, natural law, this whole body of knowledge. So they have this illusion of good, and they're still advocating for evil, but they think they're doing good. So that's in one sense, but even in the sense of people who think they're creating content and think they're having an impact in terms of the value of the information. I'm not talking about having an impact in terms of viewership, because God knows my viewership is pretty horrible, but I know that the information I deliver has an impact in terms of this goal of creating, restoring true freedom. I like to call it restoration of true freedom, because you're not creating true freedom. True freedom was always there. It's just been diminished and degraded and covered up, and it's always there waiting for us, but we're putting a bunch of shit on top of it to prevent us from living in that state. So I like to say we're going to restore true freedom. But you can say create. I just think it's more accurate to restore it, because that's the default state. So we're trying to restore that default state. We're not creating the default state. The default state is already there. We're trying to restore and bring things back to that default state. So there was a lot of tangent things, but what I'm trying to say is the people playing to lose, they're doing things that won't actually create or restore true freedom. They won't create an increase in the amount of freedom and a decrease in the amount of enslavement. Not that I'm actually doing that by myself, or any of us who are doing this by ourselves. Again, it's an aggregate thing. A lot of people need to come together to be unified into a behavioral pathway forward together to combat an existing behavioral way that needs to be ended. So, yeah, how effective are you in actually fulfilling the requirements to restore true freedom? So that's the quality of the information that you put out. Is it going to potentially, if it reaches people, if it reaches someone's ears, how much is it going to be able to affect them towards that positive side of syntropy and moving things along in that positive pathway towards the restoration of true freedom and true order, justice, peace, harmony, etc. So the people who are playing to lose, who haven't engaged themselves because they don't care enough. I'm not saying they have no care. Once again, it's in a spectrum. You can have some care, but you don't care enough. They don't want to win freedom. They're just accepting to lose and remain enslaved. They can't develop and generate the care within them to motivate them into action. Well, they could do it. They could be developed. We all have the capacity in them, but they just can't seem to get there. Something's holding them back. We got all these fears and excuses. We went through that before. All these limitations, these things that are limiting them. That's probably where they're stuck at. They won't let go of these things, these limiting fear factors, because it's in that polarity of fear, of entropy, and involution, devolution. So they're just not reaching the point where the care is ignited as a strong fuel source to fuel their behaviors and their actions, to become activated, to be motivated into action, to get on the battlefield and try to win back the state of true freedom, to bring it back. That's why it's a restoration. So if you think you're a good person, but you're sitting back and doing nothing to put your voice out, either literally, like I'm doing and Brandon's doing, put your voice out literally, or in writing, which is one way I started, was just writing. It's a lot easier. Your voice can take many forms. That creative potential, you could do art. So that's not really writing, and it's not your voice, literally, but it's an artistic form. There's many artistic forms that can convey things. It's more interpretive, so it's less explicit and less, I don't know, I want to say impactful in terms of getting people to understand these concepts that need to be understood, but it's a pathway to open up, I guess, like creative associations with concepts. But as we mentioned last week, you could have all the creative symbolism that you want. And if you don't know what it means, then you don't know what it means. You have to have the knowledge to relate to the symbolism for the symbolism to have an impact upon you. To be like, wow, look at that symbolism and how it's describing these concepts. And if you don't know the concepts and they're not being explained to you, then the artistic pathway alone has its limitations. But it's still a way that some part can be done to try to break through some barriers in consciousness in some way. It's not the optimal, but it's one way to go about it. So if you think you're a good person, but you're sitting back doing nothing to put your voice out, literally or in writing, to try to end evil, to try. Not that you're actually going to end the evil, to end the immorality, to end the enslavement, but you're going to try to do that. You're going to put your voice out in some way, and you're going to be like, all right, I care enough to get activated. I'm motivated. The care has motivated me to the point where I'm going to try to do something. And you might fail, and you might be like, it might be, a crappy effort at first, and you might think that it's useful, but then you realize later that it's not. But at least you were trying something. You're on that path. You're trying things, and you're moving forward, and eventually you'll understand more. But it starts with that care that you want to try to do something, and a lot of people in the world do have that care where they want to change things, but they're missing the knowledge. So they have the emotional part more active within them, where it's fueling their actions, but they don't have that. The trivium and the trinity part are not coalesced together in a harmonious structure. So I don't know where I have that. So do I have it here? This one. I guess that's good enough. Yeah. I should go find it. Anyways, I was looking for my circle of life one, but I don't have it up here. Your trinity of consciousness, your thought, emotions, and actions, and the trivium of taking the information in, processing and understanding it, and then putting it out, and not just keeping it inside, but putting out what is actually true in the wisdom process. That's not attained. They have the internal aspect of emotion, and they're trying to create an output, but it's not actually wisdom, because they don't have the processing of the information to actually have an understanding, a causal understanding of truth. In that infographic, the bottom part where you have the processing and the logic is coupled with your thoughts and your emotions, and that's because that's all an internal aspect. But that deals with getting to the why. That's the causality, that causal power of understanding why something is and how to get out of it is the wisdom part. So a lot of people have this. They have an emotional part that's driving their actions and behavior, but it's not in wisdom, it's in foolishness, because they're missing the thinking with the understanding and that input of the grammar, that knowledge coming in to give them the understanding. So they're not living they haven't harmonized, they're not in a unity consciousness, they're not employing the trivium in a conscious capacity, because they don't understand that they're misguided, and they're walking a path that isn't going to get them where they think they're going. So they're living in this illusion of good. They're still living in an illusion, and they're not living in the reality of what their behavior is actually going to create. So to get good, you need to do the work of trying to create good by doing the work of ending evil. So you're not a good person if you just think you're a good person and sitting back doing nothing, not putting your voice out, then you're not actually a good person. You might have qualities of good, and if you actually want to get good, then you have to actually fight for good in that serving, that syntropic, agape, true care, love, positive evolution, and order pathway that higher morality, as I call it, M2. Because if you're not working to end evil, then you're not serving that force. That's not what's motivating you. You're not embodying. You're not. It's not enlivening you to the point where you're engaging in behavior that's in alignment with it. You're still lacking the alignment with that force motivating you in order to create the behavior that actually aligns with that end goal of good, of justice, of true order, of true freedom. All right, I'll pass it to you, Brandon.
We need to recreate those get good memes. Uh, you know, take it from gaming and yeah, get it back focused on true morality. But you was talking about being a loser, and it's funny like when you say that word, it's almost like you're saying lose her, because you lose your ability to care when you become a loser. So if you lose her, the teachings of Mayat, then
Yeah,
you
the
kind of
sacred
lost your
feminine. Yeah,
way. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So hell, I just kind
that's
of put
good.
those connections. Yeah, because like when you don't care about yourself, you don't care about truth, you don't care about, morality, you literally turn into a loser. And that's just what we call people when they don't care, about whatever topic. They say, oh, that person is a loser. And then when you even look at it, like even in as far as playing a real game, if you're playing any kind of, game, it doesn't matter, sports, card game, if you're constantly losing, you would think you would want to get better, at whatever game, so they call this like the game of life, so if you want to stop being a loser, then, learn how to play the game correctly, then you can start to educate people, on, how to get good and not be a loser at the game of life. So, just just something to add. And then too, how what you said, how, how about restoring freedom, that was a good, hell analogy. It's like freedom is that old antique, how that's been, it's always been here, but we just, how we kind of forgot about it. It's the antique, that's been, it's out in the basement or, like up in the attic. And we've got to go and restore it, because it's got a bunch of lint, it's got a bunch of dirt on it, it's got a bunch of shit on it, it's starting to rust, so we just have to, do that hard work that's required, so we can restore it, so we can restore that, you know, hell ability back, to all, to all life forms. But yeah, that was a good, hell analogy there. The good old antique of freedom that people have forgot about.
Yeah, that's a good correspondence. Good analogy. Good way of symbolizing it. Some rusty thing that's been left out and it's deteriorating, and because that's what it is that true freedom has deteriorated. It's literally what has happened. It's not in its the state of freedom is not in that original default form. It has deteriorated into degrees of various levels of freedom, and it's not the true freedom, not the absolute sense of not having your rights violated. So we're all having our rights violated. So it's not that we don't have any freedoms. We still do have freedoms everywhere on the planet, and some places have more freedoms than others, but it's not true freedom. And most people get stuck in that illusion of actually having freedom as if they have the most freedom that they could have. The where you live, the land of the free. People believe in that dream, that illusion. It's again an illusion that's selling them. It's like a stand down illusion of like, well, you're already free. What do you have to fight for? You don't have to fight for freedom because you're already free. Ah, well, okay, well, there you go. I don't have to fight for freedom because I'm already free. And there you go. There's nothing for me to fight for because I'm already free. It's a very good con game when you convince someone. It could be in other parts of the world. It's just I'm picking on the U.S. because it's like literally as like a credo of the of the nation there. But yeah, a lot of people believe that they're free. So then like, well, why would I fight for my freedom when I'm already free? because you're not free. You live in an illusion. This is the unreality that people live in. They don't. The world is like you live in reality, right? You're not living in some, I don't know, like make believe fantasy land of, okay, in some sense you are, but you're
Yeah,
in the
the
real
film
world.
you act.
Yeah. So you are in the real world. It's just that the real world that you're in, you don't actually see it for what it is. So you are living in a fantasy land in that sense, because you think like, ah, look at the government. It's so wonderful. Ah, look at over here, all these institutions, and they help preserve order, and everything's good because of them, because of those people, the heroes of our society, serving serving the common good. Yay. Well, that's an illusion. And people need their eyes awakened, the parasitical class, and the people who go to seek power are people who are very ego driven for whatever reasons, and they like some of them are just outright for control, and some of them just want, I guess, a cushy paycheck and a nice pension afterwards. And they might believe in the illusion too, that they're fighting for good and they're trying to do good. And some of them actually are probably selfless, and they're not doing it for the nice paycheck and the pension and everything that comes with it, but they are trying to create a better world. But again, they're still stuck in this illusion, this false reality of understanding this why, this causal power of the truth, of actually understanding why a condition is present and how you can get out of it. And they don't have that understanding. And they're going to try to make things better by like a millimeter, by a 16th of an inch. And they're like, oh, well, if everyone just does that, every 50 years we move a 16th of an inch forward, and we'll get there eventually. I think some people think of that it's just like baby steps and get there. Not saying that couldn't happen, but you're still supporting a system of violating people's rights, because you don't even know that that's what it represents, is a system of violating people's rights. So you're going to keep championing a system of violating people's rights while you're like, no, I'm working for good, I'm a force for good, and I'm going to do good in the universe and in the world and in society, and I'm going to make things go towards this positive direction. But you don't even understand what you're actually serving. So you're actually serving that entropic, chaotic, involutionary pathway without even knowing it. And all the while, you continue to serve it while you think in your illusion, in your unreality, in your fantasy, that you're actually in this positive pathway. Hey Jim, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Jim?
His first time. He doesn't. Are you listening live or are you listening on YouTube? You gotta listen live, and you gotta wear headphones. I was probably gonna have some feedback there. All right, well, I'll continue. You can jump in afterwards once you get stuff sorted out. Yeah, so true freedom won't come back as a condition if there aren't enough good people working to bring it back. It's just not going to happen. And I'll say maybe 100, 200 of people who actually know this stuff and are working towards that aren't going to cut it. And maybe and I'm talking about that great work level 2, as I talk about it, isn't going to cut it. And then there's maybe thousands who are doing the great work level 1 of talking about all the symptoms, all the effects, all the problems. And that's not going to cut it either. Even if there were 1 million of them, if no one's actually getting to the point of of understanding the information in the great work level 2, which is the why, the causes and which is the actual solution to getting out of the problems, then we're not going to get out of it either. So overall, if the combination of the people talking about the problem and the effects, and the people, the even more minuscule percentage of people talking about the causal factors, the why and how to get out of it, the real solutions, we're nowhere near the amount of people to bring back that condition of true freedom. We're not even close to there. So there aren't enough good people. And that's what it is to be a good person, is to do this type of work. So without the great work, there is no counter to the lies and deception that people swallow to shape their worldview into alignment with a false version of reality, this unreality that they've accepted as reality, the illusion of good, the evil that's veiled in the illusion of good, and continuing to support it and condone it, or participate in it, or even create it. The only thing that's going to combat it is the voice of truth, to combat the lies that are ingrained, inculcated into the minds of everyone. So they're, it's just a logical, purely 100% true thing that if you're going to get people to shift from an attachment to a lie or deception and falsity, you have to have the counter information. They're not going to suddenly have an awakening and just suddenly realize, oh my God, this everything I've just believed in was a complete lie, and I've just suddenly realized that out of nowhere. It's going to take information coming in to their consciousness in order for them to have that contradiction of, well, this is the way I thought it was, and this is the information that's coming in. So either the new information is wrong, or what I previously believed and I'm attached to is wrong. And that's that cognitive dissonance process of trying to reconcile the both, reconcile the two, and reconcile it in a positive sense, which is to let go of your falsity and accept the truth. But that's easier said than done. It's a difficult process that people need to work on themselves. That's part of the shadow work, working on yourself internally. So we need the great work to counter these lies. And the good people, when you're a good person, you're not letting the fear of speaking out publicly or the fear of repercussions for speaking stop you in that effort to end evil. Because if you are, then you're being a coward. You're not truly being a good person. You might be, again, activated in care enough to understand what you need to do, but then, again, that fear, that involutionary force, that centropic force is still within you, holding you back. Those fear, those limitations that are holding you back in that force of fear. And in this case, it literally is a fear because you're literally afraid of something. So yeah, that cowardice is what's holding a lot of people back. So maybe you do know natural law well, but you aren't activated yet. And maybe you do consider yourself a moral person, and maybe you are in what I term M1, morality level 1, this basic morality of not engaging in the 7 primary thefts of other people's rights. So if that's the case, that you are M1, that morality level 1, what's keeping you from that higher morality, that you aren't activated in engaging that higher morality? So we can appeal to that and show that this is what an actual moral person does when there's evil present, is they work to try to combat that evil. A good person doesn't sit back and watch and do nothing while they and their progeny and their children and their future generations and the future generations of all of humanity will be enslaved. Nor do they cower from fear of speaking out, for whatever. We've gone to these excuses and these limiting fear factors before, or the fear of becoming a target because you're afraid that you're going to end up on some government list or some list somewhere, and then you're going to be targeted for something. You don't let those fears hold you back. You're trying to end evil, and you're going to engage in that work. Hey Jim, are you there?
Yo, what's up, guys?
All right, working now.
Hear me? What's up,
Yep.
Brandon? Been a
Hey, what's up,
while.
man?
It's
Yeah,
good to see you, man.
yeah,
I miss
good seeing you
Brandon.
too.
So did you want to
Thanks.
add anything on the topic?
Yeah, no, just thanks for doing these shows, Chris. I follow along here and there. Yeah, I mean, I could just share my experience, a little bit of I mean, mainly just post stuff on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and short videos, um, being that broken record, and just trying to, I'd say the same thing, obviously, about morality and objective morality and um, in as many different ways as possible. I try to dumb it down so people just can understand it. And what I find is most people don't even know the difference between objective and subjective. Like just even to start there, to get people to understand that is a challenge, right? And like the way it is on why I post mostly on Instagram is because I know that's where the people who know me see me. I'm not I don't know how, like, if I just post stuff on YouTube or all the other platforms, like there's obviously, like, to get viewers, like there's hardly anyone ever sees like the stuff that's what we experience, right? We just put the stuff out and we don't get a lot of views, but that's not why we're doing it. But I do know, at least there, that the people who know me seeing it, like people I grew up in and love. And, you know, the fear of doing that is they're going to think I'm crazy. And I've broken past that, or they'll say that I'm in a cult, right? And it's like so ridiculous. Some of the stuff that my friends that I grew up with, what they're saying, like even I've used the Socratic method on them and have gotten them deceived just by answering their own questions truthfully, that their beliefs are in contradiction with their values and what they even know to hold true, but that is true. And then you know what they do, they either double down and come back at me hard, or I've had a few of them say, well, you know what, all right, you're right, but I don't care.
There you go.
That's worse. That's
Hey,
worse.
at least they've been
Because,
honest.
yeah, that's true. But then, like, one friend in particular, is like, my best friend growing up. And I got him to that point after about like an hour of just talking. We were working together and and just asking. And after about an hour, he's like, "Yeah, you know what? All right, you're right. I do believe that." And it's like, I don't care as long as the town takes my garbage away and me and my sons can do what we want to do. We can go surfing and all that shit. And
You're a Satanist.
he totally forgot that we had that conversation. Like he doesn't remember that I did that. I didn't do it to him. I just showed him that he's in that contradiction. And then he buried it, right? But the point was like to plant the seed, but I guess that seed didn't take on, and so they every once in a while, like every couple of months, they'll hit me like on the comments of like Instagram and stuff and say, I'm just like, yo, you just like, it's all there and it's not great. Like it's not like nowhere near like what you guys put out, right? Like, I mean, but it's just me being a broken record trying to explain to people what moral relativism is and objective morality and natural law. And that, and it's like a riddle. It's just a riddle, like to them. I don't know how to make it make sense. It's like, even though the funny part is like that one friend, he's smarter than me. He could totally get it. Like he was always smarter than me. He's just not he's not willing to admit, you know, the truth. And he's just well that's just the experience I'm having. But it's that the point is I don't know, what do you guys think? Like is that an effective way if you trying to reach people that you know, um, or do you just think just create the best uh quality material as possible for everyone to see? Or do you think there's any um I don't know what the right word is, but anything good to come from trying to reach people? Do you know reaching people that are in your life?
It's much harder trying to reach people who you know because they already have ideas in their mind, about you. So when you start to bring up new ideas, then you know, those create a contradiction. Um, and I recognize this, when I was shooting guns, like one thing that I learned about shooting guns is don't, try to learn how to shoot a gun by somebody who like you want to find someone who you don't know because, like we already have these ideas, hell about people, especially if it's who we know and, like through previous interaction. So, like when it comes to like very contradictory, new information, it just usually doesn't go well. So, and trying to reach loved one and friends are some of the hardest, especially like when you've known them for 20 plus years, because there's already, you know, pretty much brain patterns that have already been laid and almost solidified. And like when you try to bring them the information, most people are just gonna not take it in likely. So, and that's just
Yeah,
from my personal health experience.
I'll tell you that. I mean, that is so true because in my past, I've done I've done a lot of those are like my friends growing up. So I've said and done a lot of stupid things that they can use against me. But on the other hand, like my mother, I'm breaking her down. She's really over the years. She used to like really like she would even cry like when she saw that I started like putting myself like on online and like videos and talking about this stuff. And like there's that the fear. I think she had the fear there that people are gonna just like, think I'm crazy, like that always would have people think of you kind of thing. That so like that protective kind of thing. But at this point, she's really like she is that satanic way though. Of like she's at least at the point where saying what you're saying is true. It's right, but I don't want to know anything about it. She's like she's 78 and just like I'm at the end of my life and there's nothing. I'm done. I'm not gonna do anything about it. But I'm just,
That's wrong.
I know.
It's
Okay,
not true.
I mean, you
Yeah.
you have correct. It's not true that my mom says that, or
No, it's not true that she can't do anything about it, that there's no point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're never too old. Like
right, right, right.
people can make changes in at the last minute, and it has an impact at least for themselves. And so, aligning with a higher purpose and finally having meaningful, greater purpose in your life is at least rewarding to yourself in that selfish capacity. Even if you're like, oh well, I'm never gonna create true freedom. Like we all know that we're not gonna create it in our lifetime probably, but that's not why we do it. And we are serving this, as I refer to it, this evolutionary syntropic ordering force. That's what's motivating us from within, is this desire, this care we have for that outcome. And that's why it can be viewed as serving this higher purpose, because the purpose is the ends, this goal, what we are trying to accomplish, the conclusion we are trying to realize. And that's what we are motivated by that outcome, and that's that purpose that we are serving. So it's that higher purpose. And you can refer to it as a higher will or a higher self and all these different terminology to get to an understanding, conceptual understanding of what is in you in terms of your understanding and what's motivating you and what you're trying to achieve. But regarding your original question of what's more effective, you can ask yourself, how many people have you gotten to change or to accept things or to get involved, or has been awakened within them the desire to engage in the quest for knowledge or the spiritual path or the spiritual quest, call it whatever your truth, whatever you want, the path of truth, etc. It's probably zero. And that's a demonstration of what I've talked about a few times on this Great Work Launchpad, is the effectiveness in the time that you put out in your life, the time, attention, energy, the effort, the work that you do, because your life is short. Everyone's life is short. We've talked about you can calculate it. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep. That leaves 8 hours after that. You got food to make, eat, toilets, showers, etc. If you got kids, even more time taken away. So there's a very limited amount of time left for you to truly to apply your time, attention, effort, energy onto something that you desire to do. So with that time, you're going to spend, you're going to do like X amount of time on whatever, trying to awaken people. Now, when you focus on people the result is going to amount to nearly nothing. So yes, there's seeds planted, and I'm not saying to not do that. But what I'm saying is to evaluate the effectiveness of the use of your time, given that you have a limited amount of time, and you've demonstrated to yourself that you're not going to be able to get people to care. You can't, no matter what you try, you're not able to get them to care, or you're not able to get them to face the mirror or accept a truth or look into something themselves. So all these people, they have not reached a point in their own lives that brings them to this desire for truth, the path of truth, the spiritual path, the quest for knowledge, as it has been for each of us in our own way. Like for me, I know what it was. 2006, I've said it before, the Alex Jones documentary, Terror Storm, is what awakened it for me. So for everyone, it's going to be something different, and for some people, it'll be nothing, and they'll go through their whole lives, and they won't have that care for truth awakened into them, where they're like, "Oh shit, I've been living a lie. The world isn't as I thought it was. I'm interested in knowing, trying to figure out what's really going on, what's really happening, and like trying to, like, how are we gonna fix it? How are we gonna not make it this way?" So for some of us, we have that curiosity awakened in us, right? So that's the previous one here. That between knowledge and understanding, well, that care for truth is going to be where you're going to doubt things. You're going to doubt the way things were. They're going to doubt your conditioning, what you've previously accepted. You're going to start to question things. You're going to be curious. That's where it starts. And that's that care for truth. And we've all had that at some point. That's why we're here. We're trying at whatever level. But, it's been different for all of us. Like I said, Mayo was Terror Storm that started it for me. And I know that's where it was that started this doubt, this question, this curiosity. And for other people, it will be different things. And no matter how much you try to do it for other people, you can see that it doesn't work because it hasn't come from their own pathway themselves. And for some, I'm not saying for some people it won't work, where you influence them and it'll click, and then they'll be like more activated in this care for truth. I'm not saying it won't, but for the majority, it won't. And we've probably all went through this, and we've all realized it. And that's why I emphasize the most effective use of your time is in creating content that can be understood by people who can come across it and take it in and actually make use of it. Because right now, if you're spending your time on that, the people who are seeing it and coming across it aren't making use of it. So the people who are at, like the beginning of their journey or whatever, like I was in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, if I would have come across some information, well, it would have been like, wow, really impactful, and it would have spearheaded me in a positive direction. That's what Mark Passio did. Coming across his information sends you in that direction. And if Mark Passio had not have put that in, and if all he was focused on are people that he knew, none of us would be where we are right now. Not a single one of us in this circle of the great work. And that's only because he recognized the value of his own time in alignment with the goal and that purpose of the great work, that higher purpose. And he chose to do things in a more efficient and effective way, which was to put mediums of information that he understood, that he aggregated, and he put that in his voice, and he put it out as content in his first video series, and then he did the podcast. So it was all audio essentially, and so he put his voice out, and people came across it, and then people valued it, and people took it in, and people learnt from it, and then people engaged in that same process he did, which is where we're at. And so this is why you have to evaluate the effectiveness of that limited time you have and what you're going to do with that time, that attention, and that energy, and that work, and that effort you have, and where it's most effective, and where it's most suited, and where it's most serving of this goal that you want to realize. And let go of this personal desire to have the people you personally care for become awakened, because it's probably not going to happen. You have to realize that it's just probably not going to happen. I'm not saying it won't. With enough work, it might. But there's a lot of people out there who are more receptive, and you don't know who they are. But when you put the content out, and this is all thanks to the internet. Like, none of this would be relevant if we didn't have the internet. All you'd have is books, and then that would be the closest we could do. Would be as in a one-to-many relationship, would be the publication of books in order to potentially reach more people. Now we have the internet. It's a lot easier. So the effectiveness of your voice reaching more people is more effective on the internet, which is what you're doing, but you're doing it on people who are aware of you in terms of Instagram posts. So that's a small circle as opposed to YouTube or Substack, anywhere that can be found online and indexed. Because in Instagram, I'm pretty sure you need an account to find anything. So that's very closed. But anywhere that's open, that can be searched, then people can get access to it, then that has a much more potential impact. Not it's a guaranteed impact, but the potential is there to reach more people, for them to be influenced by the information and take it to another level in their own journey and help other people as well.
Yep, and you never know who you will inspire by doing that. Real quick, I know we just hit the 1 hour, but I was listening to Mark's podcast from the beginning the other week, and he was talking about how, the woman told him he needs to start speaking out.
In Virginia, a woman from
yeah,
Virginia.
yeah. So her love for truth, she told him the truth. He cared for the truth, and he put the truth out there. So just imagine, he may have started later if, if she didn't care for truth and spoke, held that truth toward him. So, you never know who you may inspire by speaking the truth.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I'm not just putting that my stuff out there to try to influence my friends and family and that, but they just happen to be there, right? And of course, like I know I can't change anybody's mind, but because I was just kind of touching upon it too, because as far as the fear aspect of thing, it could take a toll on you when people are coming at you like that, and make people stop doing it. But for me, it makes me want to do it even more. So, even though it's not easy, right? But
But
uh,
that's why that shadow work comes in.
yeah. Um, but yeah, no, it's great advice. I've been working on a couple things with converting the permaculture principles into the inner work instead of the outer work. So the first principle is observe and interact, observation. So it can convert that into perception. And like the catchphrase he uses is beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So that gives a good opportunity to talk about subjectivity. And so I'm just trying to, in that, keep telling people that the only way that permaculture can work is if you do the inner work first, as like agriculture is the effect of a disease consciousness, and permaculture can only be the effect of a healed consciousness. And adding, like I did on the funnel last year, was my thing, though. The ethic, care for truth. So I've been working on that. I got the intro done, and then I'm working on that first principle. And whether or not it reaches people, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm try to maybe reach that audience, and maybe there's people in there that will hear that. Like, if you really want to see permaculture work, well, yeah, I have to do like put the cart before the horse. I mean, don't put the cart before the horse. But um, that's where I'm at with with trying to put something out there. Um,
S- Seems like too many people are trying to put the cart before the horse. Like all of our problems stem from a lack of moral knowledge. Like that's where 99.9999% of man's problems stem from is the lack of moral knowledge.
yeah,
Like you can like weed them all down to that one essential truth,
it's so
and that's
simple
why we're never
once
going to get the
you
truth
get it.
from immoral people.
Yeah, that's the number one thing that people need to understand, and that's what the goal of all this education is to get people to understand it and accept it and live it. And without that, yeah, we're not going anywhere. Well, we're going places, but it's not where we want to go, where people say they want to go. So
Yeah,
that's why they gotta take it in. And yeah, unfortunately, that's why I view the parenting. If you're if you know natural law, then parenting is probably one of the most effective ways of changing future generations, because people are stubborn, ego calcified, and do not want to listen, do not want to change their ways. So program
I could
them
talk
into
about
truth
that too.
before they can get programmed into falsity, and you're doing a very good step into um, changing the quality and condition of human minds in the future, because you're introducing new minds that are going to be properly configured as opposed to misconfigured and degenerated in consciousness and unraised in consciousness, which is what we had to come out of. So if you're doing that from the get-go, then you're doing a very good thing. Yeah, because this, we put it out there and we're just spray and pray. There's no guaranteed way to make anyone accept anything. So you just put it out there, and it can have an impact as our work has. And yeah, sure. If you're more popular and more people can see it, then you'll have more of an impact. But that's not what you got to focus on. You just got to focus on doing your part in increasing that voice of truth and making that choir stronger, so that we can speak the reality into existence that we know it should be. And so yeah, we need to put our voices out there and reach more people so they can join the choir. Hallelujah.
100 to 200 of us. Hell, I was
Yeah.
laughing. That
Yeah.
number is, oh, dude, that's fucking abysmal.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. But we're just being realistic at where it's at, because there's some people outside of the One Great Work Network
Yeah.
who, they weren't invited, or they rejected when they were asked to join. So there's people doing that higher level of the Great Work level 2, as I call it, in the causal domain and the why and the actual solutions. But yeah, we're very, very small in numbers in actually working on the solution here.
You see it in the effects that we see all over the world, so it's like that's how people can judge, her reality is look at the effects that we are getting, so you see that there ain't many of us, talking about it because we're experiencing the negative consequences.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I guess we'll end it there. And I'll end it as I usually do, in the immortal words of Mark Passio.
How about trying to get out there and do the actual great work so this world isn't such a fucking hellhole, huh?
One more time.
How about trying to get out there and do the actual great work so this world isn't such a fucking hellhole, huh?
There you go. We got to get out there, boots on the ground, do the work that we don't really want to do, but that we do want to do because we want true freedom to happen potentially at some point in this god-wretched race of human beings who are so fucking ego-calcified that they don't want to change their ways and actually live in peace and harmony together. But hey, maybe we'll get there one day, and that's why we do this, because we want that goal. Even if we don't really want to spend our time doing this, we still do it because we want that goal. We want to serve that higher purpose. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you gain some useful knowledge, and we'll see you next week. I guess that would be the 18th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will continue the fear of sacrifice and serving that force of love instead of fear. Ongoing series of shadow work, working on ourselves to become better, make the world better. Take care.